Hey guys, Chad Trofgerben here from IncredibleFlashTutorials.com, and today I am going to discuss the use of symbols in Adobe Flash. Now, what are symbols exactly? That's probably what you're asking yourself since you're watching this tutorial right now. Symbols are basically saved drawings that you create that can be used later on, or used as many times as you want. They are also used to create buttons, which allow you to click on stuff in Flash that will take you to other websites or to other parts of the movie, basically creating links from A to B. They are also invaluable when it comes to action scripting. And action scripting is the coding used in Flash to create games or interactive media and all that kind of stuff. There are three types of symbols. There are the graphic symbols, the button symbols, and the movie clip symbols. Each of them have their different uses that I will be going over today. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is we need to create something on the screen that we can turn into a symbol so we can work with this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my mouse and come over here to the shape tool and click on that, hold down my mouse button, and then select the rectangle tool. Now I'm just going to come up here to my fill and stroke options, and I'm going to change my stroke color to black, and then my fill color to, well, let's just do green. And then I'll change the stroke size to 3 so you guys can kind of see this a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just draw this rectangle on the stage by holding in my mouse button and dragging it across and then letting go. So here you are. You have your drawn rectangle on the stage. When we go over to our selection tool and select that and then come over here, we can actually mess around with this object in its current state. I can take the selection tool and grab the edge here and drag this out, or I can take the fill and move that out. Basically, the rectangle is ungrouped. It's just kind of all the parts are there and you can mess around with them. I'm just going to go ahead and undo this really quick. Undo, move, edit, undo, change selection, and then edit, undo, reshape. What symboling does is it allows us to group this entire object together so it moves as one object instead of two separate objects. Because as I said, we have the line and we have the fill here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this a symbol. And to do that, I'm just going to go ahead with my mouse, click, hold, and drag, and select the rectangle. And now I'm going to hit F8. Now when you hit F8, you are brought to a new dialog box, the Convert to Symbol dialog box. And you have a number of different options here. The first of which is you can name the object, which becomes important when you're working with a bunch of different symbols later on. But for right now, let's just go ahead and name it square. The next option we have is the type option. And we have graphic, button, and movie clip. And this is what I was describing to you at the beginning of this tutorial. Each of these have their different uses. For right now, I'm going to select the graphic symbol, and then I'll go through the other two when I'm done explaining this one. The registration basically allows you to put a registration mark on the symbol. So when you resize the symbol, or you're doing stuff with the symbol, there'll be kind of like an anchor point on the symbol for you to refer to. And I'll kind of show you that a bit more in a second. I'll leave it where it is right now, on the top left. Finally, if you're using CS4, there is the folder option. And this basically allows you to put the symbol in a folder in the library if you have a folder available, if you have made a folder at that time. Again, we don't really need to deal with this right now, but I will explain the library in detail in a second. So okay, just go ahead and hit OK when you have named your symbol and you have it as a graphic. Okay, so now as you can see, there is a blue outline surrounding the rectangle. This means that it is grouped and in a symbol. If I take my selection tool and try to now grab that line I did before and stretch it out, I can't, because the entire thing is grouped. The line and the green part are now part of this symbol. However, if I double click on this rectangle right now, I am brought into the symbol itself that I can edit. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. So I can go through and I could, move stuff around here and do all this stuff if I really chose to, once I double click and go inside the symbol. I'm just going to go ahead and undo this stuff really quick, like that. Okay, let's come back out to the main scene here really quick. So let's leave this symbol and come back out here so we have it situated like this. I want to go over the library really quick, because the library and the symbols basically go hand in hand, and it's something that you must be aware of before you kind of proceed with working with symbols. So if we come over to our library tab right here, if you don't have the tab here, you can go up to Window and then go to Library right there. So once you have your library open, you'll see that we have one object in the library, and that is our symbol we just got done creating, the square symbol. This symbol is stored in the library, and it can be reused over and over and over again. So you can actually grab this symbol from the library right now and drag it out here, and we can just put a whole bunch of them on the stage if we really wanted to. And what's good about this is, let's say you're doing a series of movies, or if you're doing a bunch of different business stuff that has the same content, you can always go ahead and draw your stuff, make it a symbol, put it in the library, and then you can reuse those library items over and over again in future installments of your series or your business stuff or whatever you're doing. There is one catch to this, though, that I must point out. If you alter this square, whether it's in the library or here, it will change all of these square symbols. So for instance, if I double click in this symbol to go into it to edit it, and I go ahead and I change the color, I'll just go to my paint bucket here and then go to properties and then change my paint bucket to red. When I did that, you'll see that the other two also became red. Let's back out here to my main scene. So, and if you go into the library, you can see that that symbol is also red. So every time you alter the symbol, whether it's on the stage or in the library, it will change all instances of that symbol that you are using. So if you decide to copy a symbol and then modify it to make something new, it's always a good idea to duplicate the symbol. And all you do here then is, let's just right click on one of these symbols and then go to duplicate symbol. This will allow us to make a new symbol but keep the contents of the original symbol so we can work off of it. So I can go ahead and name this one red square and then hit OK. And as you can see, when I did that, we now have a separate symbol in there. So if I go back here to my regular square symbol, I'll just drag one out here and then double click on it and then change the color back to green. You'll see that all the square instances changed back to green. However, the new symbol that we made, the red symbol, which is located in the library, we have a red and green square, is the same. And so that's something to keep in mind. So whenever you edit a symbol, you'll be editing all the instances of that symbol in both the library and on the stage if you so happen to have multiple instances of it on the stage. Okay, now let's move on to what exactly a graphic symbol is good for. Let me just go ahead and delete these off of here really quick so we just have one thing to work with here so we don't get confused. A graphic symbol is good for animating, basically. If you're animating a cartoon, if you're doing like a full-length episode animated cartoon or something similar, that's probably what it's best for. Past that, the movie clip is probably used the most. However, graphic symbols have their uses. The one thing you got to keep in mind about the graphic symbol is when you double click on it to edit it, when you go into a symbol, you have another timeline here that you're dealing with. So when you go back and you're on the main timeline, this timeline is separate of the one that's inside there. However, the one inside the symbol is dependent on the one outside right here. So if we go into the symbol and let's say at frame 50, let's right click on frame 50 and insert a keyframe. At frame 50, we want this symbol to change color. Okay? We just go to properties on frame 50, we go to properties and then change the color to purple. So at frame 50, the color changes to purple. Now, and see, we have red, purple. We come back out to the main scene. The square cannot go to purple because on this timeline, we don't have the timeline going all the way to 50. This timeline is bigger than this timeline. And so we will need to extend the outside timeline, the main timeline, by right-clicking on frame 50 and going to insert frame to 50 so that this timeline can play itself all the way to frame 50 to turn purple. There's other things you can do too with the graphic symbol in that light. If you come over here and if you click on the symbol and you come over to your properties, you have the ability to change how it loops or how it plays. For instance, right now, this will loop, this particular symbol. That means if this goes past frame 50, the main timeline goes past frame 50, since this symbol's timeline is only 50 frames, it will reset to 1. So for instance, if I come down here to my main timeline, and I right click and I go to frame 70, and I insert a frame, you'll see we have at frame 50 it's purple, but then at frame 51 it'll go back to playing from the beginning of this timeline that's in here. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a hierarchy. This timeline in this symbol is dependent on this timeline here. You can also alter this though, as I said. Right now it's looping, as I demonstrated, but if you click on the symbol and come over to your looping option and go on this drop down menu and change it to play once, then your symbol will only play to frame 50 and then it'll stop. So it'll go to frame 50 and then remain purple forever or until you dictate change to it. Another thing you can do by clicking on this is going to the single frame option on the looping, and this will allow you to dictate what frame you want this to freeze on. So for instance, right now it's frozen on frame 1. So on frame 1 in our symbol, it's red. So if we come back out here and we go to frame 50, which is where it used to turn purple, it doesn't because it's only stuck on frame 1. However, if we go and decide to change this frame to 50, as we know, it changes to purple on frame 50 in that symbol, and hit enter, it changes to purple. And it's always purple because it's stuck on frame 50. And so when animating, it's probably best to use graphic symbols because it's the most visual, and it allows you to kind of keep everything kind of in a hierarchy so you know what's animating what and what's dependent on what. Okay, now that we've covered the graphic symbol, let's move on to what the button symbol is good for. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this symbol right here. Now, when I do this, I want to point out when you go to the library, the square is still in there. So you'll never lose it ever, and unless you delete it from the library. So don't be afraid to delete stuff from the stage because it'll remain in the library. So just keep that in mind when you are organizing your stuff. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and draw a new square here. Click on this and let's keep it purple. Come over here and then draw this square right there. I'm going to go ahead and use my selection tool and then highlight all of this and then hit F8. And now I'm going to name this one button. Now, instead of choosing the graphic type symbol, I'm going to hold down my mouse button and then choose the button symbol, just like that. And then I'm going to hit OK. Now, if, again, we have our symbol here, it's all grouped together. Let's double click on this symbol though to go into it. When we do, you'll notice that the timeline is completely different than that of the one we have out here. Just go back in here. Okay, let's look at our options here. We have up, over, down, and hit. This basically means that on up, that's what the button's going to look like when it's just stationary. Nothing is happening to it. Over indicates what the button looks like when your mouse cursor is over the button. Down is what it looks like when you click the button. And hit is the area in which we can click the button on. If that makes any sense, which I will get to that in a sec. So, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create a keyframe on over. So I'm just going to right click it and come down here and create a keyframe. And I'm going to just change the color of it, something really simple. So I'm just going to come over here to my paint bucket tool and click that. And then come down here to my color. And then I'll choose yellow. There we go. Now I'm just going to take my selection tool, come back here, and I'm going to right click on down and insert keyframe. And then I will just click the color here. And then I'll just change the properties. Color to, let's just make it pink. There we are. And I'm just going to go ahead and just right click and insert a keyframe on hit and just leave that how it is. We don't have to mess with that because that's not actually a visual part of it. So there we go. So on up it looks like this, over looks like that, and down it looks like that. So what does this do exactly? Well, let's check it out. Let's go back to our main stage by clicking this right here. And now we are back out. Now let's go up to Control, Test Scene. And as you can see here, we are now testing this movie as if it were being published. And you'll see that we have the rectangle here. But if we mouse our cursor over it, it changes to yellow right when our cursor hits it. And then, if we click it, it changes to pink. It's pretty cool, huh? Okay, so we have that. Now you can go back into it, and of course you can add a new layer if you would choose to, right down here. And then you could go ahead and add text to it. So if we came over to our text tool here, just something kind of simple, and click that. And then we can go ahead and just change the color to white, and then come back here. Click that, and then let's just type in, click here. And then click off and take our selection tool and then move it over. I'm just going to kind of go ahead here and then resize it. And again, it's just the same principle. Right click on over, insert a keyframe, click on the text, and then I'll change the color to black. Then right click down, insert a keyframe, and then I'll change the color to blue. So then it's just the same thing. See, and this is how you do like an internet button or something. You know, you mouse it over and it changes colors and stuff, and we can go back out here to the main scene and then Control, Test Scene, and then we can just see this in action. So again, really cool stuff. And again, this is kind of the difference between the button and graphics symbols. Graphic symbols you can't dictate to click on. You can't change the look of it when someone rolls over it with their mouse. And as I said, graphic symbols are better use for like standard traditional animation. Buttons are better used for interface stuff, like if you're making a menu or if you're making an advertisement and you want people to click on it. Okay, now let's discuss the movie clip symbol. The movie clip symbol is probably the most advanced type of symbol. It's used all the time when you're doing like ActionScript encoding in Flash. And it's also used if you have like a very simple ad that you just want an animation to completely loop and repeat over and over. It's what it's good for. And it's good because it also isn't dependent on the main timeline like the graphic. So I will show you what all that means. So I'm just going to go ahead, click this, and delete this button right here. And then I'm going to come over here and make another square by clicking on my rectangle tool right here. And I'm going to go ahead and just change the color so it's not so ugly. Change it to that. And then come back over here and I'll draw my rectangle. Okay, and now I'm going to just make it a symbol as I have done with the other two. Click, hold, and drag, select it, hit F8, and then I'm going to name this movie clip. And I'm just going to select the type to movie clip, just like that, and hit OK. As I said, the main difference between graphic symbols and movie clip symbols is that the movie clip runs completely independent on its own timeline. Meaning, it doesn't matter how long the main timeline is down here. It will do what it's going to do. So I will demonstrate this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of these frames, save for the first frame on this timeline, so that we can kind of demonstrate this. So the main timeline is one frame. Okay. Now let's double click and go into our symbol to edit it. And on this timeline here, I'm going to adjust it a little bit. I'm going to right click here on frame 10 and insert a keyframe. And then I will go ahead and just nudge this slightly here with my selection tool. I'll just kind of adjust it. And then on frame 20, right click, insert a keyframe. I'll do the same thing. I'll just click this. And then on frame 30, I will do the same. Okay, so we have this so on 1 it does that, 10 does that, 20, and then 30 it does that. So just every frame changes like that. We go back out onto our main timeline, and we only have one frame. However, if we go to Control, Test Scene, the movie clip animates anyway, according to what the movie clip timeline is indicating. And it doesn't matter that this timeline isn't big enough to correspond to this timeline. The movie clip is going to do what it's going to do. And that's the main benefit to the movie clip. Movie clips are also used when it comes to programming, when it comes to dictating on the coding of ActionScript, what to do with the symbol and all that stuff. So again, that's what it's good for. Another thing I want to point out with the movie clip symbol, let's go ahead and just right click on frame 30 on the main timeline and insert a frame, and let's make this 30 frames. You will notice though that the movie clip symbol does not demonstrate, show what it's doing on the main timeline. It just appears to be stationary. It doesn't appear to be changing shapes as it should be when I go into it and look. That's another thing about the movie clips. When you're editing them in Flash, and if you're on the main timeline, you cannot see what the symbol does. And that's, I guess, a benefit to the graphic symbols if you are animating a cartoon, it's very visual. You can always see what's going on. With the movie clip, you can't. The only time you can see it in action is if you either go into the symbol itself to edit it or to look at it and play it, or if you go to Control, Test Movie, or Test Scene and watch it like that. The final thing I want to discuss about symbols is tweening with symbols. Tweening is basically a very standard way to animate in Flash. It's kind of an automated way to animate in Flash. Everything save for shape tweening needs to be a symbol when you tween it. So for instance, I'll just kind of demonstrate this really quick. I'll just move the symbol up here, and then I'm going to right click on frame 30 and insert a keyframe, and move this down there like that. If I come back here to frame 1 and right click and create a classic tween, you'll notice that my layers change to purple with an arrow, and then if I hit enter or return, the object moves. Now alternatively, if I go ahead and I create a new layer, I just come over here really quick and I draw an object. I'll just take a circle, come over here to frame 1, and then draw the circle right here. I'll then go ahead and use my selection tool, right click on frame 30 on the circle layer, and insert a keyframe. And then I will move the circle up like this. Just basically what I was doing with this. I'm going to right click on frame 1 and create a classic tween. You'll notice that when I do this, the tweening process actually creates a symbol for me right away, and then it just goes ahead and does it. So you can have Flash create the symbols for you when you're tweening. However, it gives them weird names, like tween 3, as you can see right here. If we come into our library, it's called tween 3 right there. And so, again, it's not really descriptive, and it probably would be more beneficial for you to create your own symbols so you can organize them the way you want, and so it won't get so confusing later on when you're going through your library and looking at all of them and all that. Alright, well, I think that covers the very basics of symbols. Again, symbols are a foundation that you must build upon when doing your more advanced stuff. So, I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope to see you guys next time.